I wasted years practicing speed and sweep picking, but my playing still sounded lifeless because I missed on simple theory hacks that turned boring into memorable. In this video, we'll see how 10 minutes of theory can beat 100 hours of stale exercises. And I got 5 tricks that you can start using today and spice up your playing. Let's go. Trick 1. Music nerds call this polychords, but I don't care what it's called, I only care how it sounds. Now take this C chord for example. I mean, it's basic, classic, safe, and it's boring. Even after I learned the cage system and I could play all those cool E, A, and G shape, but guess what? It's still boring. That's because they're all made from the same notes, C, E, and G. Now eventually I heard this chord in a Haunted Shore song. At that time I would call those scale chords. It's a term I heard John Petrucci use once to describe made-up chords. But looking closely, this is actually a E minor chord with a D chord on top. In that case would be a 1 minor chord with its 7. Now my boring C chord can be blended with, let's say, G. Now of course the guitar isn't a piano. It's so hard to have a perfect C triad with a perfect G triad on top. So what I'm doing basically is blending some G with my C. It's not exactly a polychord, okay? So the nerds are gonna get pissed, but it doesn't matter. We're just spicing it up. Today's tone are brought to you by my old ass Korg AX100G that my mom got for me in 2001. We're using the tube overdrive setting. So I chose to blend G over my C because G is the perfect fifth of C. The G note is already in my chord, so I'm only adding 2 other notes, the B and the D. So it's spicy, but it still sounds more grounded than, let's say, my E minor and D that we played earlier. Experiment with this, go crazy. Pick a scale and start pairing chords together and see what you like. Trick number 2. One thing I can do if I don't want to mess with the notes in my chord too much is play inversions. My first inversion has the 3rd on top. I'm still playing the same notes, right? I got the same root, 3rd, and 5th. But now my 3rd is on top in the bass position, so it changes the vibe a lot. The first inversion to me sounds very intriguing, like it wants to resolve somewhere. The second inversion feels a lot more stable because the 5th is on top. Trick number 3, another thing I can do with the same exact notes is play them as open triads. So instead of playing root, 3rd, then 5th, I can bump the one in the middle, put it to the end, and now I'm playing root, 5th, and 3rd. Now to me this puts a lot more emphasis on the 3rd. It's a very emotional chord. It also sounds a lot cleaner and precise than a full-blown barred chord because I'm not repeating any notes. What about my inversions? Can I use them here too? Yes, you can! So my first inversion, instead of 3rd, 5th, and root, I'm playing 3rd, root, and 5th. My second inversion, instead of 5th, root, and 3rd, I'm playing 5th, 3rd, and root. Are you starting to see how a few simple theory concepts can open up your options? Now we're switching to lead for trick number 4. Let's face it, we've heard every pentatonic lick on the planet. Now the upper 5th technique that I learned from Sean Baxter in Guitar Techniques magazine, it's gonna fix this for us without even learning another scale pattern. Now let's look at the circle of 5th chart. If I go from my E to my B, and it doesn't matter if I'm playing major, minor, or pentatonic scale, if I'm going from E to B, there's only one note that differs in those 2 scales. Now let's start easy with pentatonics. If I'm going from E minor pentatonic to B minor pentatonic, I'm trading the G for an F sharp. That's all that differs. Now let's say I only know my first minor pentatonic box, right? If I go from playing E minor pentatonics over my E minor chord to using B minor pentatonics over that same E minor chords, now my old licks have this new twist to them now. They sound different. Now I can push this a little further, up another 5th to F sharp minor. Now I'm adding a second spicy note. Now this time it's C sharp. Now I'm hinting at another mode, Dorian. And I say hinting because pentatonics are a 5-note system and the modes of the major scale, they're a 7-note system. So I'm not playing the whole Dorian mode, but I'm hinting at it because of that C sharp. Now, why does this matter? Because we make things interesting by playing notes that the listener is not expecting. Remember that D over E minor polychord that we played earlier, right? So we're expecting a boring E minor chord, but we're adding a D over it, which is very spicy. So let's do the same using modes. Now I'm in E minor Aeolian, the regular minor. I have C as my 6th degree. Now if I go up a 5th to the B minor scale, I have C sharp in there. That's the only different note. To make this simple, we're gonna keep playing the same minor 1 position and move it around instead of trying to learn other modes pattern, because I don't want you to focus on learning modes right now. I want you to focus on the concept of the idea. So if I take my E minor position 1 here, move it across to B minor, and I start playing those notes starting from E as my tonal center. Now I'm playing E Dorian, which is not what the listener is expecting. If I push this a bit further, up another 5th, and I start playing in the F sharp minor position, once again, starting from the E, using it as my tonal center, now I'm playing Mixolydian. So here I still have my C sharp from the Dorian mode, but now I'm also switching my G for a G sharp. So it's a major mode. So it's a lot spicier. Trick number 5. Now, every cool triad tricks that we've learned earlier in the chords section, right? Open triads, inversion, it all applies here. And I made a very detailed video on that. But today I want to focus on my favorite, the up a third technique. Now, I never really hear people talk about it this way. I've heard and seen fusion player use it a lot, but not talk about it. It's basically like the up a 5th technique for scales, but for triad. So my E minor chord has 3 notes, right? My E, G, and B, which are my root, 3rd, and 5th. If I go up a 3rd to my G triad, I got G, B, and D. So I just got one different note. It's that D, which incidentally is the 7th degree of E minor. So it's not in my E minor chord, but it's in the scale. Now, to be fair, many players have thought about mixing G triad with E minor triad because E minor is the relative minor to G. So these two scales are exactly the same. So it makes sense. So my G over E minor is kind of spicy, but let's push this a bit further, up another 3rd to my B minor. So now my B minor triad is B, D, and F sharp. So I got 2 spicy notes now. So F sharp is the 2nd degree of my E minor scale. So again, it's not in my chord, but it's in the scale. Now we just went from using classic E minor pentatonic and E minor triad over our E minor chord to using B minor, F sharp minor pentatonics, the Dorian, the Mixolydian mode, and on top of that we're playing G triad and B minor triads. I mean, that's a lot of flavor from one chord. Challenge of the week! Ah! Record a 2-chord backing tracks using your phone if you must, and make these 2 chords interesting using what we've learned today. Now jam over those 2 chords using trick number 4 and 5 that we've seen today, and tell me that your mind doesn't go. Now there's a lot more stuff I like to do with triads. Well, this video will show you everything about it. Guys, I appreciate you watching the whole thing. Cheers.